Phil Isenberg, let's get you in on California. Should California be looking at tearing down some dams?
Well, California is. Klamath River discussions have included California. There are roughly 1,200 dams in California. Number varies depending on how small you want to count. But of those, the state figures that about 200 are significant sized, not giant sized, but significant sized. But the history of California is that water developments largely started with regional efforts. Didn't start with the state government, didn't start with the federal government. The state and federal government came in very late. So the state and federally developed storage facilities are largely the products, a few in the 30s, the 1940s, the 50s, and the 60s, but then the state came in with the State Water Project. So essentially what you had is eras in California's history where local projects, whether big ones, Hetch Hetchy here, the Owens Valley for the city of Los Angeles, or dozens or even hundreds of smaller dams up and down the state, were regional, local, sometimes individual property owner projects. However, in the last 15 years, we've started to move back toward regional projects as opposed to statewide big projects. As a matter of fact, the old question of the Delta Conveyance Facility, call it a peripheral canal or whatever else it is, may well be the last debate for a major statewide project in California. We don't have a state water system in California. We don't have a federal water system. We have a multiplicity of thousands of water districts with thousands of miles of pipes, and everybody owns different things. And some of the facilities, the dams, are owned by multiple agencies for multiple purposes. One of the great lessons of public policy is opportunity strikes when a public infrastructure is in need of repair or replacement. I mean, it's just kind of human nature. If you know you're going to have to spend a lot of money to replace, can you replace anything on the historic registry? I didn't,
It gets gone.
probably have to preserve the building, right? Okay, so you preserve the building, but then you face actually spending a ton of money to replace something that's been around. That sobers people's judgment and provides you with an opportunity to also loosen up all the expectations of all the interested parties who have benefited from that facility or who fear they will lose benefits in any new construction. It's not easy, but that's the time to do it, and that's where most of the, as I understand it, that's where most of the action has occurred.
I wanted to, we've talked a little bit about the draconian measures that are being contemplated to restore this balance between our ecosystem and other human needs for water. But I really think I want to emphasize that a lot of the measures that we're talking about are not that draconian, and that it really depends on what you think about as draconian. I mean, to me, making the second largest river in California, the San Joaquin River, dry in most years so that you walk across it, that's draconian.
Right.
Demolishing 95% of the wetlands that used to be in this area, that is draconian. Having pumps in the central or in the southern delta that make rivers flow backwards away from the ocean, that's draconian. So while around the state there are some dams that have outlived their usefulness or perhaps never had a usefulness, that even their owners and operators don't want anymore. I'm thinking of dams on the Yuba, there are other dams on the Tuolumne, there are other dams we could go into that could be removed. It's not all as dramatic and draconian as blowing up a dam. One of the signature achievements of the Bay Institute in the last few years is the settlement of a 20-year court battle to restore the San Joaquin River so that it can be called the San Joaquin River again.
Not just a riverbed.
Not just a riverbed. And that isn't going to involve a lot of earth moving and I mean, there will be some of that, but it's not going to involve the removal of Friant Dam. It's just going to require that it release water because that's really all the fish need is just water. Cold water running downhill to the ocean. So,
but just yesterday in Washington was a hearing on a piece of legislation by the Central Valley interest who said, well, wait a minute, we want you to, apart from everything else, set aside that agreement because it affects the way we do business. I mean, it's really interesting to watch some of the lawsuits that have been filed. Now that a relatively modest amount of water flows through the San Joaquin, people are saying, wait a minute, water's seeping into my property. I built right up to that river on the expectation that there wouldn't be much water in it. Right. Now there's more water. Somebody has to pay for it. Right. I mean, that's the history of human civilization. But boy, it's a real opportunity. But this is America. Nothing's ever settled forever.